Alright, hi YouTube. I have a last Epoch build guide for you guys. I'm playing Avalanche Shaman. This is level 96 on hardcore. I just managed to kill Aberroth with this character, and a lot of people have been asking me about the build and how it works. This is a kind of like a big hype build. I think that a lot of people are trying. I just cooked this myself from scratch when I was leveling with this. I was playing a rogue first, and then I ripped Aberroth. You might have seen that. And then I decided, okay, let's try something else. And we came up with this in the end. And it worked out pretty well. So here's my Aberroth Kill that we have. So this was just last night. And I just finished the planner as well, where I have optimized this a little bit. So here's the kill, and basically if we fast forward this a little bit, here it is. So kind of cool stuff. It has worked pretty well. It was surprisingly tanky and powerful. And I'm gonna go through it. I have the planner here. I made a fresh planner for this based on my character. So this has my own items that I have equipped here, plus minus a few tweaks to make this a little bit more optimized. This is obviously not exactly 100% what you need to go for. I also do have a filter here that I can export, and I also have in the description as a paste bin, so you can go check that out and import a filter for your character if you want, or you can also use this Maxwell feature for generating a loot filter here. So I personally have not tried it, but this should also work pretty well. Either way, Avalanche Shaman. So it's pretty straightforward build. Basically one button, you have to just spam this, and well, you have massive AoE damage here from those explosions basically. This is a cold build. We stack a lot of cold damage, cold pen, these kind of things. The big upsides are it's very high DPS and relatively tanky. And the downsides are you have to manage multiple buffs. In particular, Maelstrom, not too important, but you kind of want to keep it at least 6 stacks, because it gives you Frenzy and Haste permanently. You can see the buffs here and kind of fast. And also Warcry. You have to cast Warcry every around 4 to 5 seconds, because it gives you lots of crit and damage. There's a bunch of nodes that help you out there. And also the Totem. You have the Storm Totem here that you also need to cast every 5 to 8 seconds, I would say, because that one gives you 40% movement speed. So you're kind of zooming. Right now I don't get a speed from the totem because there's no enemy, but you go pretty fast, and you also have to leap on top of it, which is really nice. So it's kind of mobile, but you have to press this button, but otherwise just spam your Avalanche. Now the big problem with this is also Avalanche costs a lot of mana. You see this is 40 mana. It's actually I think 50 baseline, but I have it slightly reduced from the staff and from an Avalanche node here. So it only costs 40 instead of 50, which is quite helpful. But in general, the biggest problem on this build is the mana, because this is a very hungry build and it's very hard to get enough mana regeneration. I have 27 mana regeneration right now by investing a lot into prefixes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 mana regeneration prefixes. There could be a 5th one here if you don't have this relic. For example, I had a normal relic and I went up to like 30 mana per second, which did make it feel kind of okay, but it still means you have less than 1 avalanche per second that you can cast. So you kind of want to like walk in, one-shot a pack, then boom, one-shot another pack. So that's kind of how that goes. And then for the bosses, you can kind of just like, you know, press Warcry and then spam away, and then you can spam for like maybe 10 seconds or so, depending on where you are with your mana, and you can do some big bursts. And like this, you can delete bosses. I was able to go like 200, 300 corruption and delete bosses and like timeline bosses in like 10, 20 seconds sometimes. And this can definitely push way higher in the corruption. I just didn't really do much on hardcore. I was mostly aiming at the Aberroth Kill, and we'll see, maybe I'll push it a little bit higher. So that's kind of how the main setup works, and we have the planner here that I'll go through a little bit. This build only comes online after you actually unlock Avalanche, which is relatively late because it's a Shaman only skill. So this is, I think, like around level 40 or so you can unlock it, if you just go Shaman and then spec all of the points in the Shaman tree. Before that, you cannot actually use Avalanche. So what I did at the start is I just did Gathering Storm, Stormcrows, we have it here actually, and Maelstrom. So this is kind of like the early game that I played with in this recording. So we have here the Crows, the Maelstrom. The Maelstrom is actually kind of good for early game. It kind of kills stuff. You just walk through the packs, and you see here it kind of just melts, and you just try to stack it up as much as possible. There are some nodes here that allow you to stack it very easily, and this is kind of like how I did the early game. And whenever there's some other monsters, I was like smacking away at them. There's also a talent, for example, on the Shaman tree, where in Gathering Storm gives you mana. So like this, you don't run out of mana. And you see here, it kind of works out. So you just put a totem, the Crows, the Maelstrom. Basically at level 40 or so, I spec'd into Avalanche. So this is how that worked, because it comes online pretty late. But as soon as I did that and just went all in on mana regeneration, it kind of worked out. And this has so much damage that you basically just one-tap everything in the campaign, minus maybe the bosses. And you don't really have to cast very much. So as long as you're kind of resourceful with your mana, you're fine. Now there are other ways to solve mana. There's also other support skills that you can use here. So there are some variations of Avalanche. where, for example, some people go Spriggan form to try to reset their mana to full. So every time you enter Spriggan, you get a full rage bar, and that rage bar, after you transform out of Spriggan form, will give you a full mana bar again. The problem is you have to stand in Spriggan form for like 5-6 seconds and do nothing, which is pretty stupid, I think. So I didn't like that at all. I tried it briefly, and it was extremely clunky, so I did not go for that. But it is an option. And also, for example, you don't really need Maelstrom on the bar. You can cast Maelstroms passively. There is a talent here on the Shaman tree that, for example, has chance to cast Maelstrom when hit. There's also a talent here, chance to cast Maelstrom on kill. There's like some stuff like that. And like this, you can actually get your Maelstrom stacks, get your buffs, for example, just from the Warcry. Here's a node where you cast Maelstrom from the Warcry. However, it costs a lot of mana, and I did not like it, like relying on this too much. But it is an option, and you don't really have to have Maelstrom on the bar, and you can do something else, but there's really not much else. I tried like Terra's Blessing just to heal myself sometimes, but it felt just really clunky, so I didn't like doing that. And just having Maelstrom on the bar is also more mana efficient, so this is why I did that. There's simply not many good supporting skills. I did try to summon Spriggan. This one is very powerful as a minion. It can give you crit avoidance, healing, spell damage. It does have a lot of nice powerful buffs, but the problem is it just dies all the time, and I've not found a way to make it stay alive, honestly. Even if you invest a little bit into minion health and these kind of things, this thing just dies all the time. Even with the health regen aura. So yeah, it's kind of annoying. Sometimes it's up, sometimes it's not. So I just went with mostly the Maelstrom here. But it is also an option if you want to have the pet and maybe invest into minion health. Maybe you can get something out of this here. For the rest of the setup here, this is what my equipment looks like. This is like my imported character, so this is not like best in slot gear, but it's just like the stuff that I found here with Circle of Fortune, Blasting, probably around 30 hours in or so. I do have relatively good stuff. There are some optional uniques. For example, I have a Titan Heart. This goes really well with his staff. For the most part, I was actually running a one-hand and shield. I had the Grim Constitution, a new shield. I just kind of like got stuck with it, but this was actually not bad. So it's this shield here that gives you like a large ward bank, which is kind of nice. Basically, you start a run with like 4,000 ward, and then it kind of slowly goes down, it never goes up. But later on, I figured, okay, we want to try to get staff. Staffs have a lot of damage, and they can have like way bigger numbers than regular like wands or scepters or something. But it can go one-hand and off-hand. It can even do a catalyst in some cases. So there are some good choices here, but I think staff is the best, and it combines well with the Titan Heart that I got here. So that was a really nice combo to make this really powerful in the end and very tanky, but I got this very, very late in my progression. So before that, I was mostly running just a random chest. I had like something like this here, one hand and shield. So this was what I was doing until like 250 corruption plus, and then we swapped to this here. Helms, there's something really crazy for uniques. Just really good bases here for Primalist. This one, for example, has Leech. Otherwise, if you don't have the Leech Helm, you can also get the Leech Blessing. There's like the Black Sun timeline, I believe, that gives you Leech Blessing. That's kind of cool. I have the Aurora's timeline, Time Glass here. This is mostly a hardcore choice. It doesn't really do anything. It's just like the cheat death proc, basically. That it's really nice to have in hardcore, but any other amulet works. I was running a normal amulet for the longest time, just like trying to get some armor shred maybe. You want to have at least something like 50 to 100% armor shred, I would say. And you also want to have some frailty chance somewhere. So amulet is like a good source of both these things. I got a frailty here, but yeah, I want to have one source of frailty, one source of armor shred, something like this here. And then the rest is we stack a lot of crit, mana regen. You want to have 4 to 5 items of T5 plus mana regen, and you want to hit, if you can, 614% crit chance, including the Warcry. So you actually need 416% increased crit chance because you get 200 from the Warcry, and together with the 14 base crit that you have on your Avalanche, you have some notes here. This gives you plus 9% base crit, so I have 14. You need 614% crit chance. So like this, you can reach 100% crit chance, and 100% crit chance is really valuable on this build because there are some bonus effects when you crit. Here, for example, when a large boulder crits, it has a chance to drop a small boulder at the same location. So you get more boulders when you cast your avalanches by critting. So if you have 100% crit chance, not only do you do more damage, but you also get more boulders. And then you have a chance for the small boulders to convert to large boulders. And I'm not 100% sure if they can proc off each other, but I think they can. So then those large boulders can then crit again and give you small boulders again, and so on. So there's a bit of like a crazy hyper-scaling effect there. Otherwise, we just go for like a lot of damage. There's damage. Here's more damage. And we have the cold conversion. So we go full cold with our Avalanche, and we can also go, for example, a cold penetration here. So this is kind of how the setup worked. And it was pretty straightforward in the end. So just like, yeah, keep out the totem, cast your Maelstrom once in a while, Warcry for the big nukes. Warcry also makes you invincible for 1 second, which is kind of cool, so you can try to dodge like powerful boss attacks, for example, or here and there when you have like a big dot on you, you just Warcry, heals you a little bit as well, cleanses ailments. You also have the Fury Leap here. This one is really nice to spec into. A lot of people don't spec into it and just have it on the bar, which is okay, but I really like specking into it. There's a lot of really good stuff. So you get the Frenzy, you get the Cleanse, you get minus mana cost. I would not underestimate this one as well, because it costs 20, which is quite a lot, and you can go down to 12, and you can also get the cooldown resets. So there's lots of really cool stuff here that, and also the immunity. This is really helpful for some boss fights. So I really like having Fury Leap spec'd, but it is optional as well. So I talked about, for example, Maelstrom not being on the bar. You can maybe put something else there. You can also put the Spriggan, for example, if you don't want to spec into the Leap. You can, drop Maelstrom from the bar, put a Spriggan there, spec into Spriggan. So some options exist, but I really like having the Fury Leap. Also helps me a lot with like Aberroth, for example. Having the Leap spec'd is very useful. But yeah, this is basically what the setup looks like. You can find the full planner here in the description. This is my character, and I think I just explained pretty much all of the main mechanics. And then from here on, you can refine this, of course. There can be better gear. Lots of like powerful improvements can still be made, but otherwise it actually worked pretty well. So remember, invest a lot into the mana regen from the start and try to get a crit up. And after that, you're basically golden. The rest is just like life, resists. I have endurance, as well as a defensive mechanic. It's pretty powerful. On a Primalist, there are a bunch of endurance synergies. And this is basically about it. Keep your totem up. You don't need a lot of elemental res. You see here my character is actually uncapped on elemental res. It is kind of good, but you get 50 from having a totem up. So most of the time you will have that, and you don't really need to cap your elemental res, which is kind of like a little perk here. You can neglect those resistances pretty hard. Yeah, this is it. So hope you enjoyed the guide, and stay tuned for some more uploads. I also want to make a rogue for the Lethal Mirage, and also of course the Aberroth Kill is coming to YouTube, so stay tuned for that. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed this little video, and see you guys next time.